It's the Brad and John Show.
Brad and John Show for Friday, September 26, 2025. I mention that because of the fact that a lot of people listen live either on 104.5 KSOQ, which we call Westplex Talk, or on our streaming channel. But a lot of people listen in the future on Brad, bjshow.co and bjshow.us. So it makes some sense as to know when the show was actually recorded. Right, John?
That's exactly right, Brad. Again, is it my cue? Can I sing my song?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's time for Brad's Top 3.
It is.
It's time for Brad's Top 3.
And the ladies are in fine voice this morning, and they don't want to sing it once.
It's time for Brad's Top.
They want to sing it twice, and we start off with
It's number 3.
national story. I try to keep things local, but I can't ignore this one. California Senate Bill 771. Are you familiar with this one, John?
No, what's 771?
Okay, here we go again. And California State Bill 771, and let me give you just a synopsis of the bill. The bill essentially is a very controversial bill because I guess you could say, here we go again. If I can get my phone to work right here. Okay, it refers to a proposed law to hold social media companies accountable for amplifying violent or threatening content. Now, the interesting part of this is that it's not necessarily things that are said by California residents. If you were to go on one of the social media channels and put something on X or Twitter or that's the same thing, or Instagram or Facebook, and it would be considered, like they said, what's the terms again? Amplifying violence or threatening content. Not only could you be fined $500,000, but the social media company could be fined $1 million. John, does this sound familiar to what happened during the Biden administration when if you went on there and you said, I don't believe this COVID shot's going to help me from getting COVID, and you got banned or you got thrown off?
Yeah, it sounds exactly like it, Brad. And the question with this, isn't it the question with all these? Who gets to decide what is dangerous?
That's the whole point. And the interesting point, just this week, there was a story that I don't think got enough attention, but there was a story about that YouTube let a bunch of people back on that they'd kicked off for this exact same thing back in the Biden administration.
You're exactly right. It was a lot of COVID folks, right? A lot of people that criticized the COVID vaccine.
Right. It was the people who were criticizing the COVID vaccine and criticizing the whole Dr. Fauci thing. They had their YouTube channels chopped off. They were not allowed on YouTube anymore. And now Alphabet, whatever they call themselves, it's the owner of YouTube, essentially saying, yeah, we think we overstep our bounds. But here we go again. I know hate to say that, but don't you think this is pretty much the same where we're going back to the Biden stuff? And the crazy part of this is, like you just said, who's to decide? If you said, and here's a perfect example, if you said that, hey, I think that there should be beard tugging in St. Louis County. If that went on your Instagram account, Instagram could be fined $1 million because they're saying, well, hold on a minute, he's proposing violence. He's proposing beard tugging in St. Louis County. Get what I'm saying, John?
I get exactly and a lot of times men with a long beard might want it to be tugged. I do think the one good thing that came during the Biden administration, I believe it was during the Biden administration, was they were able to step in when, if I recall correctly, you threatened to throat punch Shelley Barr.
No.
I think you were the aggressor there, right, Brett? Shelley was just being sweet and kind and loving and thoughtful as always, and you threatened to throat punch her, I think.
No, not the case. J.C. Corcoran was going to flatten my face, and you got that backwards with Shelley.
Well, but hold on. In real life, though, didn't you guys once get some sort of a strike? Or Shelley did on Facebook because she said she was going to throat punch you?
Yes, which was sort of a joke. That's her term of endearment for her.
It's her term of endearment, right?
Right. Her term of endearment is she doesn't agree with what you're saying, so she's just going to throat punch you. I'm going to throat punch you, and somehow or another that ended up someplace, and we got in trouble for that.
You know what I always say, Brad? What's a little gentle asphyxiation between friends?
Well, I'm not going to touch that. Okay. Well, you ready for number 2?
Yeah, let's do it.
It's time for Brad's number 2.
Yes, it is.
It's time for Brad's number 2.
And in full disclosure, I know Dan Borgmeyer, the mayor of St. Charles. Him and I are not great friends, but I see him at events from time to time. Him and I have an interesting relationship where it goes way back, where he used to be in the advertising business. And matter of fact, he used to do the Evelyn Wood commercials, and it was him doing the voice. Remember we talked about this, John?
Yeah, he was a voice guy.
And every once in a while, I will go up to Dan Borgmeyer. I say, "Hey, Dan, 878," which was the beginning of the phone number for the Evelyn Wood Reading Dynamics course, and he would give it 6262. That was the number. Okay, Dan has had a recall petition signed against him by, 5 different citizens of St.
4 or 5 people, right?
Right, and they give these 6 reasons they're going to recall him, and I've read through the whole reasons. Okay, once again, I don't know Dan all that well, but if I had a reason to sign a recall petition for Dan, it wouldn't be about any of this stuff. It would be about him building a new city hall, but that's a whole nother story. But have you read these accusations about him?
Yeah, so the way that I understand it, Brad, the everything about the data center cannot be included. And if you're recalling a mayor, it has to be for malfeasance, right? Isn't that the catch of this whole thing?
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I hate to throw my hands up and say I don't know enough about what they're complaining about, but wouldn't you say, to use like a sports metaphor, it's kind of ticky-tack stuff?
Yes, exactly. And they're claiming he's owns property that is before the city zoning board and blah, 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 and he did this and he did that. And I'm going like, okay. And most people are looking at this and going like, okay, this is because of the data center thing. Now, when the data center thing came up, there was accusations that one of his family members was one of the people that owned part of the property, and it turned out it was like his second cousin or something like that.
Yeah. I'm sorry to interrupt, Brad, but I read the Post-Dispatch story about this 2 days ago, I think, at the beginning of this recall thing. And the Post-Dispatch story seemed to suggest that the guy that owned the land actually was his cousin. They described him as a cousin. So I don't know if we're splitting hairs or not, but I think you and I talked about it. I'm not sure exactly where we landed. But if you were selling, like, wouldn't you know if your cousin owned the land?
No, I don't know that but you're asking me the wrong guy because of the fact that, remember, my father, went on this hunt to find out who his relatives were because his father left him when he was 2 years old. I've got relatives running around that I have no idea who they are. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, you can usually tell them because they're a little bit goofy, right? Like if you see a really goofy guy driving around with like a license plate that would be like all J's or something, you'd be like, could be a Hildebrand.
You know, it's funny you should say that. The other day I was behind a guy that had 6 X's on his license plate, and I pulled up next to him. I said, "Pardon me, do you have any Grey Poupon, and are we related by any chance?" That's what I said to him.
Yeah, and he said no, he was just carrying 3 Dos Equisas.
Right. I don't know. You know, these like what you said, the accusations against him are certainly, okay, whatever. This is my beef against all these mayors. The city hall, if you've ever been in the building, I don't know, it's maybe 40 years old. It's right there on, hold on a minute. The city hall in St. Charles is right between 2nd Street and Main Street. And it's right across the street from the county courts building and the jail and the whole bit in downtown St. Charles. To me, very serviceable building. I've always thought it's a nice-looking building. Dan Borgmeyer, for some reason, has always complained, the building's in terrible shape, blah, 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 blah. Okay, here we go again. You go to Europe. People always talk about, hey, Europe's so wonderful, it's great, it's great. And you go there, and there's buildings that are hundreds of years old, right? I mean, like the City Hall of France, of Paris, is what, like 500 years old or something like that? Isn't it like super old building?
Yeah, that's true. You're right about that, Brent.
In the United States, 40 years old, let's tear it down. It doesn't work anymore.
I do recall you having a fit about a building on Kisker because it couldn't house all of your helium tanks. So I don't think you have a lot of room to talk, Brad.
Well, the deal on this is he got this bond issue passed, and they're building a brand new city hall. And to me, this was window dressing. And Dan, if you don't like this, I'll be more than happy to come on and say this. I think you sort of, gilded the lily, so to speak, by saying, well, it's also going to be a veteran center. Oh, well, it's a veteran center. Well,
and they're going to house homeless children, foster kids, and all the money's going to go to education.
Right.
They're in fact going to have a studio apartment to use for escorts for education.
Right. I don't know. I don't think I'd ever want to be a politician because of the fact that there's somebody who's going to try to knife you in the back. You know what I'm saying? Somebody.
Yeah, I do know, Brad. I don't think you're going to have to worry about getting elected anytime soon.
I think you're
they're
right,
going to
too.
see your performance on a MoDOT committee, and they're going to be like, don't think we want him around.
Right. Okay, ready for number one?
Yeah,
And
let's do it.
now, Big finish, Brad's number.
And it involves another politician. And this is actually funny.
Oh, is it in the city, Brad?
John and I have worked together too long because John knows my interest in certain things. He sends this to me, and John, I know you don't like it when I divulge text you sent to me.
That's fine. I told you, hey, it should be there.
But
you read what it says.
At 6:37 this morning, John sent me a text that says a contender for Brad's top 3 or C block, okay? And the interesting thing was this was already on my list.
Yes.
It was already on my list.
Okay, what happened, Brad, and where did it happen?
Alderwoman Laura Keyes was driving somewhere. Matter of fact, she was driving to a police barbecue, and she heard a loud noise. And she thought, oh, my God, OMG, my pickup truck has been struck by a bullet. And she said, and this is according to her, this is quoting her, she felt for blood along the right side of her body, but found none. She hit the gas to speed away. She was shaking so hard, she said, that her fingers couldn't dial 911. It took her a few minutes to calm down enough to call police. Keyes visits the gun range and knows what different caliber bullets sound like. This story to me is so funny. That's the comment from the Post-Dispatch. And this is interesting. Keyes visits the gun range and knows what different caliber bullets sound like, okay?
I love that part.
And she says, I knew this wasn't a 22, she said. I thought at least a 45 or maybe an assault rifle. Police investigated the noise Keyes heard on Fair Avenue about noon on Tuesday. She and an officer returned to the block and walked the road, picking up pieces of her side view mirror. They reassembled all pieces of the broken mirror like a puzzle, she said. A neighbor's doorbell camera showed police what happened. She sideswiped another car. That's what happened. She wasn't.
And how did she describe the sound, Brad, that happened?
Well, she said
it's. Oh, go ahead.
She said that what happened was, he says, in the end, police say no one fired a shot at Keyes' vehicle. Her pickup truck had sideswiped another truck. Her truck's side mirror extends about 9 inches and hit a similar mirror extending from a parked vehicle. This is shown on somebody's Ring doorbell camera. And she says the two mirrors hit one another and clapped, she said. When she and the officer returned to the scene, the parked vehicle was gone. She goes, if the person who owns the truck wants me to contact him, he can. I'm insured. It's not an issue. Okay, she got shot. She's reaching her body and checking for blood. She knows it wasn't just a 22. It had to be a 9mm or a .357 Magnum or, oh my God, a 45 or maybe an assault rifle bullet. No, she just sideswiped somebody else's truck. I'm going like, okay.
I love the visuals here too, Brad. Now, first of all, let's all just put it out there. If you're working with 9 inches, you're going to make it clap. You're going to hear the sound of clapping. And trust me, I mean, let's just, in full disclosure, it doesn't even have to be 9 inches. Like, humbly. If you're working with whatever you're working with, you can still make it clap, Brad. Now, what I don't like about this story is that I think people are going to read this and they're going to think that some black women aren't great drivers. Like, next thing you're going to tell me that Asian women drive over curbs and get in your way when you're on the way to the store.
But the crazy thing about this is she's so sure it's a bullet. And not only just a regular old 22 long rifle. Can't be that. It's got to be a quote-unquote high-caliber round, a 45 ACP, or maybe an assault rifle. I go, okay, whatever.
You know, what struck me with this, pardon the expression, but what struck me when I read this, and what I thought would most annoy you, Brad, She was trembling so bad she couldn't call 911.
Yes.
And if you're Brad Hildebrand, who calls 911 almost daily, I don't think trembling is any excuse, you know?
For those of you who listen to the show on an irregular basis, John and I have this running, shall we call it a gun battle, so to speak?
Yeah, how about a rolling gun battle?
A rolling gun battle where I call 911 all the time because I like to think of myself as a good citizen. I see matter of fact, just earlier this week, I'm driving along 44. There's a big old truck tire in the middle of lane number 2, the center lane. I dial 911 and I get highway patrol and I report it. Okay, that could have caused an accident. But in the history of John having his driver's license, since the day he turned 16, John, how many times have you dialed 911?
0.0.
And what's interesting,
because you know why? There's wonderful men and women in the world like Brad Hildebrand that'll call 911.
But see,
so my call will not be missed.
But the problem on that is if everybody thinks that, nobody dials.
But they don't, Brad. There's always going to be a 90-year-old man like Brad Hildebrand who's got 911 on speed dial. Now, Brad, I'll admit my hypocrisy here real quick. I know we're up against time, but I'll admit my hypocrisy here. Yesterday morning, I called Chesterfield City Hall. Do you know why?
Because you were trying to find out something in the news and they told you, oh, don't worry about that. We've already covered that up.
Yeah, we've already covered up.
Right.
No, Brad, there was a tree limb that fell down between the sidewalk and the road, and part of it was in my lawn. And I said, whoa, can you guys come out and remove your tree limb? And they came out and removed the tree limb within I'd say, an hour, Brad. It
wasn't your tree, but it was the city's tree?
Correct, yeah. It's between, in Chesterfield, between the sidewalk and the road. We're not responsible for managing that. And Brad, I'm not going to have a tree limb down in my in my lawn. You know what I'm saying? So I called Chesterfield City Hall, and they were out, I'd say, within 60 minutes.
Okay, listeners, keep in mind what John has just admitted to. If there were someone struck in front of John's house, if they were hit by a car, they were laying there bleeding, John would say, oh, somebody else would come by and dial 911. But if there's a tree limb in his front yard, which is on the easement, which is technically your property, but it's not, right. John's dialing the city. Can you come and take care of this tree limb?
Now, hold on, Brad. I would call the city after the dead or barely alive person was removed. I would call the city to have them remove the blood stain.
Yeah, right. I would imagine that. Okay. Okay. I have a quick question for you, and this is going to be sort of a tease kind of question because of the fact that if you know who this person is, we're going to talk about this coming up. Okay. Do you know who Eric Garland is?
I do know who Eric Garland is, yeah.
Okay. He will be part of the discussion in our C block coming up. Okay.
All right. Fantastic.
Okay.